Let me just take this opportunity to introduce Professor Madhav Das Nalapat. He is currently the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian and ITV Group, vice chair of Manipal University's Advanced Research Group, and director of the Department of Geopolitics, Manipal University. He has been the editor of two prestigious newspapers before this, the Times of India and the editor of Mathrubhumi. Professor Nalapat writes extensively on security policy and international affairs. Apart from his Sunday Guardian column, he also regularly publishes in a very wide range of publications, including the Pakistan Observer. His book, The Practice of Geopolitics, which is one of the books that I have also put in that cover, published by the Manipal University Press, contains, among others, articles on issues related to India's engagement with the rest of the world in climate, environment and energy policy, as well as hydro-diplomacy between India and China, or the lack thereof. So I now request Professor M.D. Nalapat to give the inaugural address for this.
So, thank you very much. I'd much rather do this in a slightly less formal way, because I think the subject as such is a subject that needs to be dealt with without too much of formality, and for that reason I'll do it this way. I want to thank you, I want to thank Tanushree, and I'm very happy to have heard the Vice Chancellor speak. Now, I want to say certain aspects which is my belief as to what the new climate diplomacy is since the time Prime Minister Modi took office. Because I do believe that Prime Minister Modi has made a significant difference in India's climate diplomacy. And I mean, here we have Mr. Amarnath Shetty, who is the real expert on the new government, and certainly he'll be an expert on Mr. Javadekar, who is the Minister for Environment. But I just want to give my own views from the point of view having studied the functioning of Prime Minister Modi and Mr. Javadekar in various international fora about this issue. The first, I think, is a very clear realization that even though climate change and climate damage can be caused by an individual country or an individual cause, the effect becomes universal. So even if it is one country that does a lot of damage, that one country will create damage which will damage the entire global community. So from that point of view, if you're looking in terms of dealing with a practical solution, and I do believe that Prime Minister Modi is a very practical individual. He comes from a state called Gujarat, which have got some most practical people in India. If you want to tackle this in a practical way, you have to take other countries and other groups along with you. You have to have a conciliatory and cooperative approach. I mean, the same kind of approach that this conference is talking about. And you can't really be a situation in which you are like, Rabindranath Tagore says, Akla chalo re, we are fighting alone, and India will fight alone and wage a lone battle. It doesn't work that way. I mean, India may have the best policy in the world, but if it's alone, if it's isolated, if it can't bring people on its side, if it cannot have conciliatory formulas that are more acceptable than just saying that, look, this is it and either you accept it or not, you're not going to make a difference. And it's very important that a country like India make a difference. Now, you have countries that made a negative difference on climate change. Certainly, India being a very large economy is also having its own impact on climate change. But if you want to make a positive difference, then you have to take people along with you. Which is why in any of the international conferences now that you are seeing post the Modi government, you'll find a lot of newspaper reports that, look, India is going to be the spoiler, India is going to be the troublesome country, India is once again going to be the country that blocks any kind of a consensus on climate. And we have played that role multiple times in the past decades. But now, I don't think that kind of a complaint is heard at all, for the simple reason that is definitely not the approach given to negotiators by the Prime Minister. And certainly it is not an approach given to negotiators such as Mr. Shetty by their Minister, Mr. Javadekar, who is very clearly, being very clearly told that we need a conciliatory and cooperative approach that can take people along, and have solutions that can take people along, and that's the only way we can make a genuine difference in this very complex issue of climate change. So I think that is a very important change that has come about. And if you track the climate conferences that have been taking place, in fact the large COPs, etc., the large conferences, and you see the Indian diplomacy there, then you will see what exactly I mean. There's a constant search for commonalities. There's a constant emphasis on commonalities. So instead of emphasizing the differences and saying, look, you guys are doing this wrong, you guys are doing that wrong, and this is what you should be doing, you're basically looking at what they're doing which is congruent with what you believe in and with what you're doing. And then you focus on that first. You build a relationship of trust with countries, including countries that don't really trust you very much on climate issues, and certain countries that don't deserve to trust you because they've been extremely negative so far as climate is concerned. But you build a relationship based on commonalities, and then once you establish that level of trust, you start nudging towards solutions which possibly with a lot more input from you as to those solutions. So it's a much more nuanced diplomacy. It's a much more complex diplomacy. It's not a very simplistic diplomacy like, look, this way or the highway. It's not a diplomacy that we know best and you don't know anything at all, and we are in the right and you're in the wrong, and that's the way it is. We're not going to change, and you guys are not changing, so that's, you walk out without an outcome. I think, as I said, the government of India now wants an outcome out of every conference. I said I hesitate to say all this because I have nothing to do with the government of India at all, zero. My role there is absolutely zero. My relationships with the government of India are also, unfortunately, or fortunately in my view, zero. But I have some in my, some tracking of the way policies have gone on since Prime Minister Modi took office. And I think part of the reason for that is this paper that Dhanashree is talking about, the Sunday Guardian. It was started 5 years ago to support a man called Narendra Modi. And Mr. Modi at that time was not being given too much of support, if I recall. 5 years ago, I don't think too many people supported him. Today, there's a huge rush. It's like being in a compound of a mela, of a fair, the number of publications that support Mr. Modi. But in that period, 5 years ago, when we launched it, there was nobody supporting Mr. Modi. And we still continue to support Mr. Modi because we do believe that this man is a transformational person and he's a transformational leader. So we have spent a lot of time and effort studying him, watching his performance in Gujarat, watching his earlier performance in the party, and today watching his performance as Prime Minister, and specifically on the issue of the environment, a few things, and that is where this kind of thing is based. So as I said, it's a complete change in attitude. From the old attitude of Mr. Kamal Nath, for example, that look, we are going to go alone, we are going to block this, we are not going to have a consensus, we don't care. If we are isolated, it doesn't matter. The new approach is, don't be isolated. Be as far as possible in the wider group. Be accepted as a conciliator. Be accepted as a cooperative country. And be definitely accepted as the country which unlocks solutions rather than creates problems towards what other countries may believe is a solution. So I think that fundamental change has taken place in climate diplomacy. I mean, Dhanashree is a scholar who's studying this kind of diplomacy. I'd encourage her to do some research on the kind of climate diplomacy that we're doing now to find out if these conclusions are accurate or not. So, you don't lead by obstructing, you lead by helping. You take the maximum number of countries along. You take positions which are adopted by a maximum number of countries. And that way, you start building a consensus on the issue of climate change. And you build a consensus across a range of issues. It's not simply a question of carbon emission. I mean, you have a single point program on the part of some countries like cutting carbon, and that's it. Or reducing fossil fuel, and that's it, no matter what. Now that's a very, if I may say so, a very mechanistic view of looking at climate change. But if you have a whole complex of issues that affect climate, it's not simply carbon emissions. It's also, for example, diet. If you have, for example, a vegetarian diet across the world, there's no doubt that if you have a diet very heavy in meat, it is one of the main factors behind pollution, behind the climate change. It's one of the worst reasons for climate change is the fact that you have a very large meat industry across the world, and this industry has been a major factor, a very negative factor in climate change. So draw attention to that as well. It's not simply a single point program of carbon, it's not a simple single point program of fossil fuel, it's not a single point program of industrialization, it's also lifestyle choices. So pay attention to lifestyle choices and start looking at sustainable economic development, but also sustainable lifestyle development. So that is another, if I may say so, additional emphasis that Prime Minister Modi has made in this entire field of climate diplomacy. I mean, we have seen him at work. I mean, I don't think he's openly espoused vegetarianism, although he's a vegetarian. And frankly, I don't think any country in the world or any individual or any government can prescribe dietary choices to other people. I mean, it's up to them. But one can conscientize people about the effects on climate of certain types of lifestyles and certain types of diet. And remember, our Sunday Guardian, we published a piece by PETA, that is the prevention, this ethical treatment of animals, the Society for that. And we published a very reasoned analysis as to why vegetarianism was actually the most climate friendly kind of diet to have. So that kind of, if I may say so, spreading of the good word and seeing climate change in more than the simplistic mechanistic terms in which certain industrialized countries have seen it is I think an important part of this thing. The second point, of course, is very simple, and that is that it's also that poverty is also a problem. Poverty is also an issue, and you have to have a situation in which you can't condemn people to poverty, you can't condemn people to hunger, you can't condemn people to disease on the altar of going in for technologies which are unsustainable for you financially at your current rate of economic growth. Now, China has made remarkable progress over the last 2 decades in removing people from poverty. It's paid a very heavy price in terms of the environment. India would like to remove people from poverty without giving that much of a cost to the global community. So the question is, what are the different alternative technologies available? And an examination of these alternative technologies is also, I think, a very, very important part of the climate diplomacy of the Ministry of Environment and Forests that is now, post 2004, 2014 May, post the Modi government. It's very important to understand that a conscientious effort is now taking place to find out alternative methods in which energy systems can work, and promoting these methods in such a way that they do not severely impact the anti-poverty programs of the government and private sectors. Because you cannot afford to stop the anti-poverty program. Poverty is one of the most terrible curses of humanity. It's as bad a curse as problems with climate. So from that point of view, promoting this kind of alternative technology in what I may call it a natural process. Now you may have an allopathic process, and I apologize to Dr. Vinod Bhatt because he's an allopathic doctor, but he's an allopathic doctor with a very, if I may say so, Ayurvedic mindset. So I can safely say this. You can promote certain technologies and certain changes in a way which is faster than what the natural system of governance, the natural system of society, the natural system of economy can bear, and this may ultimately become self-limiting because it may ultimately slow down the process, it may ultimately become a little negative, and it may ultimately create more complications than it solves issues. But if you take it in terms of a natural process, that you bring in alternative technologies and you bring in change
in a way which is naturally feasible and manageable, then you are basically unlocking the door to sustainable long-term change. And I think one of the important components of this particular government strategy is basically the effort to create sustainable, long-term, beneficial change. It's not a sudden kind of change that you create to make the United States happy, or to make Germany happy, or to make China happy, or to even to make your own voters, I don't know, happy. I'm not sure we have too many voters in India who are very concerned about climate change. I mean, probably even less than we have in the United States. As you can see, the rise of Donald Trump and the Republican Party shows that climate change is not one of the big issues in the country, which is the biggest climate polluter in the world. But in India, you create therefore a change that is consensual, change that is natural, and change that proceeds at a pace that is sustainable over a longer period of time. So for that change, what is needed? You need a set of two principles. The first set of principles, as I said, I've had the privilege of someone who has been interacting with people for some time. I'd like to say that at fairly senior levels in this particular government, I've interacted with people in some detail on the issue of climate change. So I'm not entirely as ignorant of their views as it should be the case. So again, but from these are discussions that have taken place, and what I'm taking back is there are two types of a two-pronged strategy. On the one hand, you've got multiple bilateral partnerships. You have bilateral partnerships, for example, on wind energy. You have bilateral partnerships on clean coal technology. You have bilateral partnerships on solar technology. You can have solar technology with China. You can have wind energy with Germany or with Denmark. And you can have clean technologies of coal with the United States. On the other hand, what is also important is to create a global facilitation mechanism and network, so that it becomes easier for countries which do not have the diplomatic heft of India to also access ways of improving their contribution to climate change in such a way that their overall national interest is not negatively impacted and their poverty levels do not rise up to levels which are they're already unsustainable and painful. They should not go beyond that level. So you have bilateral relationships and you have multilateral institutional frameworks. And the effort has got to be to make both simultaneously. It's not either or. Because if you go back to the Chinese model, and the Western model is always seen as zero sum. If you look at Western colonization, the colonized countries suffered terribly. The Western countries gained a lot. If you look at the other option, which is win-win, both sides should gain. So any healthy relationship will be a relationship in which both sides gain, and there's no zero-sum relationship in which only one side is gaining. So if you search for a zero-sum solution, you're not really searching for a solution which is viable in the long run, because in the long run, this is a win-win world. It's a world in which you need a certain degree of if I may say so, equality of sacrifice and a certain degree of equality of benefit for it to be accepted. So these are, in my view, some of the core points of Prime Minister Modi's effort at climate change. And if you look at Gujarat, for example, there's been a tremendous amount of effort in solar energy and solar power. And the reason for that is a very clear understanding that climate change is a severe problem for humanity. I don't think that this government is a climate denier at all. This government definitely accepts that climate change is a major issue. Climate change is a major global problem. The difference is what should India's role be in ensuring that this problem be mitigated, be reduced, and finally eliminated. So for that, the set of tactics, the overall strategy, the approach, the prioritization is obviously very different from that of the previous government. The previous government was more into a zero-sum situation. The previous government was more into a confrontation mode. The previous government was more into, okay, I'll go alone if need be. I'm not going to listen to anybody else. I know I'm right, and possibly, quite likely, we are right. And the United States and Europe were quite wrong, quite frankly, but that doesn't make a difference. The United States will go its own way. Europe will go its own way. they will drag other countries with them, and we will go our own way. And ultimately, the world climate situation will be even worse than what it was before the conference, before such a conference took place. So that has been made a complete no-no to the Indian negotiating team. The clear instruction has been given to them that the Prime Minister does not want to see the Indian team as being obstructive. Given that you have to stand up for the interests of the poor people of India, given that limitation, that caveat, there should not be an obstructive attitude on the part of the Indian negotiating team in climate change. Which is why today, if you look at the way climate change, the talks are going on, if you look at the way, for example, India is being talked about in the global media, I think it's very rare to find a situation, unlike in the past, where you see, oh, India, the problem country, India blocks a deal, India is going to stop this deal, India is always creating a problem, India is, always, there's never really interested in the solution. I don't think that situation comes. In practically every committee, in practically every informal grouping, in practically every informal meeting of countries, India is now an important partner, an important player. And it's not because of its size. Many of the groupings that earlier would never invite India because of fear that India would then go on its own tangent and the whole meeting will break up, are now safely inviting India because they're very clear the Indian delegation is looking for consensual solutions. The Indian delegation is looking for cooperative endeavor. The Indian delegation is looking for methods that are acceptable in a broader range of geographic entities than in the past. So I think overall, a significant difference has been made to Indian climate diplomacy by Prime Minister Modi and his government. And I think therefore, I'm glad that Mr. Shetty is here, because I think the theme of this particular conference reflects very clearly the theme of his government and the approach of his government to the issue of climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Narapan, for the address. Anyone who has been following the negotiations, particularly the Paris conference which happened last year in December, it's very clear that from India, from being a country with a black band always, which is like the usual thing that is talked about India, like he was talking about, like an obstruction. Now it's looking for cooperation and collaboration, even like, making some compromises to make sure that there's a consensus on the deal that that comes across by 2020, that will be enforced by 2020. It's very crucial that India is part of the solution and not a part of the problem, as is usually seen in the international negotiations process. Thank you so much once again.